Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
If you're an experienced pet owner, you already know that having a pet is 25% belly rubs, 25% yelling, drop it, and 50% groaning at the bill from every pet visit. Which is why Lemonade Pet Insurance is tailor-made for your pet and can save you up to 90% on vet bills. It can help cover checkups, emergencies, diagnostics, basically all the stuff that makes your bank account get nervous. Claims are filed super easily through the Lemonade app and half get settled instantly. Get a quote at lemonade.com/pet and they'll help cover the vet bill for whatever your pet swallowed after you yelled, drop it.
Odyssey celebrates Earth Day, brought to you by T-Mobile. You can count on T-Mobile to help you stay connected on America's largest 5G network.
(1983). That was the last time Donnie D'Antonio had been referred to as, quote, the future of horror. Back then, he had preferred to introduce himself with a grin and a handshake that lingered just a little too long.
Donnie D'Antonio. Double D.
Producers laughed, assistants blushed, executives remembered the name. The 1980s had been a golden age of trash, and Donnie D'Antonio had arrived at precisely the right moment with precisely the right instincts. Horror was loud. It was rubber and slime, moral outrage packaged as entertainment. And Donnie had delivered. Sewage had been written in a frenzy. 10 days fueled by coffee, cocaine, ego, and the unshakable belief that shock alone could be art. The premise was blunt enough to fit on a cocktail napkin. A rat falls into toxic runoff beneath Dallas and mutates into a grotesque, sludge-dripping predator that stalks and murders the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. It should not have worked. But it worked wonderfully. Lines wrapped around multiplexes glowing in pink and teal neon. Parent groups protested. Teenagers bought tickets twice. 3 times, 4 times, 5. Critics called it vulgar, misogynistic, soulless. Donnie clipped those reviews and framed them. The studio could not have greenlit a sequel quicker. First up, Sewage 2, Deep Stench. It arrived with a larger budget and a manhole cover poster that promised, quote, the smell of fear. Next up, Sewage 3, Toxic Touchdown. It escalated everything. More slime, more elaborate deaths, a halftime massacre sequence that became dorm room legend. And then, Sewage 4, Beneath the Bleachers. It leaned into urban myth, suggesting that the rat had become something older than science. After that, Sewage 5, Waste Management. It was promised as, quote, the final cleanup. That was a lie. Sewage 6, Rise of the Rat, rebranded the creature as something mythic, almost supernatural. And then, Sewage 7, Drain of Terror. It tried for darkness and grit as horror trends shifted towards self-awareness. But that was not the end of the Sewage franchise. In 1994, desperation disguised as innovation arrived with Sewage 3D, Splatter. Entire sequences existed solely so the mutant rat could hurl vicious sludge directly into the camera. The tagline read, this time, it hits back. Audiences flinched as digital waste splattered inches from their faces. One critic wrote that the 3D glasses were unnecessary because the film was already aggressively immersive in its crappiness. Another critic remarked that the franchise had finally achieved authenticity by becoming what it so constantly depicted: crap. The box office limped, just like the mutant rat, at the end of Sewage 3D. The sewer had dried up, and so eventually did Donnie D'Antonio. He never wrote another theatrical hit. A few projects slipped through financing cracks and went straight to VHS, then DVD, and then vanished into the algorithmic graveyard known as VOD. Donnie blamed the market. Donnie blamed changing taste. Donnie blamed, quote, elevated horror, a phrase he said with visible irritation. His name had once meant excess. Now it meant nostalgia, at best. Punchline, at worst. Which was why he found himself sitting in Buddy Saul's office on a gray afternoon that smelled faintly of old carpet and stale ambition. Buddy had produced Sewage, all of the Sewage films. Buddy's office walls were lined with framed posters from the franchise's peak years. The original latex rat head sat in a glass case near the window. One cloudy eye permanently collapsed inward. Buddy stood instead of sitting. He was energized in a way that made Donnie suspicious.
You seen this Sleep Tight thing?
Podcast garbage. That's where horror goes to die.
That's what I thought. That's what everyone thought. But listen to me. This isn't about podcasts. This is about controversy.
I don't do podcasts, buddy. I don't whisper into microphones for free.
This guy, Theodore Fisher, podcast star, big movie deal. Real tragedy hits. Some lunatic kills his family. Turns out he emailed this writer 666 times. All about one episode. Sleep Tight.
666?
Exactly. You can't buy that kind of marketing. The news won't shut up about it. Debates everywhere. Is art responsible? Should he take it down? And guess what happens? The episode goes to #1 in the country.
People are sheep.
People love controversy. Controversy is the new currency. It always has been. We just forgot.
We didn't have podcasts. We had theaters, big screens, real audiences.
What did we have in '83? Protesters, church groups, news anchors screaming about moral decay. And that's what made Sewage explode. Don't pretend you don't remember that. This is the same cycle, just digital. Outrage spreads faster now. Downloads instead of box office, but the principle, identical.
Podcasts are lazy. No sets, no crews, just some guy breathing into a mic.
Maybe, but this guy turned it into a movie deal. Respectable, critics taking him seriously. That's interesting. Apparently a critic died during the premiere.
Oh, so not a total loss.
Amen.
So what are you suggesting, buddy? You want to start the 1 millionth horror podcast?
All I'm saying is, give it a listen.
I don't even know how. I need an intern to find my own ass after I take a crap.
It's easy. You download the app, search the title, press play. That's it. Future storytelling.
Buddy picked up his phone. Donnie watched as Buddy navigated the screen with surprising fluency. The title appeared. Sleep Tight. Minimalist cover art, clean typography. Nothing like the garish posters that had once made Donnie famous. Buddy handed him the phone.
You want to know what the kids are eating? Take a taste, my friend.
Donnie hesitated, then took the device. The screen reflected faintly in his glasses, blue light cutting across the soft lines age had curved around those eyes.
If this is whispercore nonsense, I'm walking out.
Just listen.
I'll do it when I get home.
I know that tone. You ain't gonna listen.
Buddy, I survived test screenings for Sewage 4. You think I'm scared of a little bedtime story app? I'll listen later.
You're deflecting.
I'm not deflecting.
You are absolutely deflecting.
You've been in this business too long. You see strategy in everything.
And you don't see opportunity in anything anymore.
Why do you care so much? It's a podcast. A guy whispers, some lunatic snaps, and the internet screams for a week. What's this got to do with us?
My nephew's dating Miranda Silver's personal assistant.
Miranda Silver? You're telling me this now? She's a gatekeeper, buddy. She greenlit half of the prestige horror in the last 5 years. Why do you not tell me this before?
Because we can only play this card once. You get one shot at a big shot.
And?
My little birdie says Miranda wants no part of a Sleep Tight sequel. The production was a circus. Media outside her house, protesters, think pieces about morality. She went full cuckoo.
Define cuckoo.
Leak in the attic kind of cuckoo. They can't patch it. She's talking about getting out altogether, selling a house, starting a bird sanctuary upstate. Actual birds, Donnie. Feeders, binoculars, the whole thing.
What's your point, buddy?
My point is, the studio's going to buy her out so they can make a sequel.
A sequel? To the hottest movie in Hollywood that no one is allowed to watch?
Bingo, Donnie. And you, my friend, are going to write a script. So I could send it to the studio the second they're ready to move.
You think they'd read it?
They don't want Miranda's ethics. They want her numbers. If she's out, there's a vacuum. And you know what fills a vacuum, Double D?
Filth.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll listen. At home, alone. I need to focus. You get one shot, right?
Call me when it crawls under your skin.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Just got a new puppy or kitten? Congrats! But also, yikes. Between crates, beds, toys, treats, and those first few vet visits, you've probably already dropped a small fortune, which is where Lemonade Pet Insurance comes in. It helps cover vet costs so you can focus on what's best for your new pet. The coverage is customizable, sign-up is quick and easy, and your claims are handled in as little as 3 seconds. Pro tip, Lemonade offers a package specifically for puppies and kittens. Get a quote at lemonade.com/pet. Your future self will thank you. Your pet won't. They don't know what insurance is.
Breaking news from Good Ranchers. Over 85% of grass-fed beef in stores is imported. Most grocery store meat contains antibiotics, hormones, and harmful seed oils. Good Ranchers does things differently. All their meat is born and raised on local American farms. No antibiotics, no added hormones, no seed oils. Just one ingredient, meat. Visit goodranchers.com and get $25 off your first order with code RANCH25. That's code RANCH25 for $25 off your first order. goodranchers.com. American meat delivered.
Donnie's apartment was quiet in the way only a bachelor's apartment can be. No competing sounds, no overlapping conversations, just the low hum of appliances and the distant pulse of traffic several floors below. The sewage posters had not followed him here. The walls were mostly bare, a bookshelf, a couch, a television he rarely turned on unless one of his old films appeared unexpectedly on cable. He stood in the center of the living room, holding his phone like it was a foreign object.
How hard could this be?
It took him almost an hour. Donnie downloaded the app after mistyping it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5. He created a login and then forgot the password immediately. He cursed softly while resetting it. Then he cursed loudly. He searched for Sleep Tight and was briefly overwhelmed by thumbnails, playlists, recommended episodes, and trending shows.
This is why movies are better. You buy a ticket, you sit down, it starts.
Finally, Donnie found it. Sleep Tight. Minimal cover art. Stark, modern, no slime, no spectacle. Just a shadowed figure in profile. He connected the phone to a small Bluetooth speaker on the kitchen counter. The blue light blinked twice and held steady. The apartment felt too bright. He dimmed the lights and told himself that was for atmosphere. Not nerves. He poured a drink, nothing expensive. Just something steady. Then he pressed play. For a moment there was nothing, and then a breath. Not theatrical, not exaggerated. It was human, and it was close. The voice that followed was low, controlled, intimate in a way film could never quite replicate. It felt less like performance and more like confession. Donnie leaned against the counter, arms crossed. He lasted 2 minutes that way. And then 3 minutes later, he had to move to the couch. Another 10 minutes went by, and he was now sitting forward, elbows on his knees. The story unfolded slowly. A man unable to sleep, a promotion, a pregnancy, a voice in the dark, the discovery of a book filled with violent bedtime stories. The creeping logic that violence might be peace. The sound design was minimal but deliberate. Faint, ambient hums, subtle shifts in tone that felt almost subliminal. There were no jump scares, no orchestral stabs, just inevitability. Donnie became aware of his own breathing. The room seemed quieter than before. Outside, a car passed by. The headlights briefly swept across the ceiling like something searching. The voice in the podcast dropped softer, describing the father standing in the hallway at night, listening. Donnie felt a prickle across his scalp.
It's just pacing, just structure.
But it wasn't the structure. It was the intimacy. In a theater, horror is communal. You feel others shifting beside you. You hear the popcorn, you sense the bodies. Here, there was only the voice and him. When the father in the story began to hear whispers that might not be whispers, Donnie instinctively glanced toward his own hallway. It was dark. He had not remembered turning that light off. The speaker emitted another quiet breath. Donnie stood abruptly and walked to the hallway, flipping the switch back on. Nothing. He returned to the couch, annoyed at himself. As the episode built towards its climax, the father's realization that he must become part of the story, Donnie felt his pulse ticking in his throat. He did not look at his phone to check the runtime. He did not sip his drink. He simply listened. The episode ended without flourish. Silence filled the apartment again. Donnie did not move for several seconds. His mind was racing. Not with critique, not with jealousy, but with ideas. Variations, expansions. What if the voice wasn't just in his head? What if the sequel inverted it? What if the infection spread? Donnie stood slowly, walked to the hallway again, listening. Again, there was nothing. But the idea was there. For the first time in decades, Donnie D'Antonio did not feel obsolete. He felt activated. And somewhere beneath that activation, beneath the creative surge, was a smaller, colder sensation, as if something had listened back. The first night after listening to Sleep Tight, Donnie barely slept, not because he was afraid, and not because he was anxious, but because something inside him had unlocked. It was as if a door he had assumed was permanently sealed had been quietly unlatched. He sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, the glow of the screen washing over his face, and began typing without outline, without second-guessing, without the familiar drag of self-awareness that had plagued him for years. He did not attempt to replicate Sleep Tight. He did not attempt to outdo it. What emerged instead was something adjacent but stranger, something that felt less like homage and more like mutation. A sequel that was not a sequel. A continuation that questioned the original premise. What if the story had not ended with one man? What if the act of listening was the true contagion? What if the narrative itself required escalation and demanded embodiment? Donnie found himself writing scenes that were quieter than anything he had ever attempted in the 1980s. There were no locker room massacres, no globs of theatrical sludge. Instead, he crafted long stretches of domestic stillness that hummed with a barely perceptible dread. A dinner table scene that stretched over 6 pages and when nothing violent occurred. Yet every word felt weaponized. There was another sequence in which a character begins recording his own voice at night and slowly realizes that the playback contains phrases he does not remember speaking. Donnie paused, reread a page, and felt something close to disbelief. His script, it was good. Not good in the nostalgic, self-congratulating way he had sometimes convinced himself Sewage 3 had been good. No, this was controlled, focused, patient. The horror was not splashed outward, it was pressed inward. It felt adult, it felt intelligent, it felt disturbing in a way that lingered rather than jolted. By the second day, he had forgotten to check his phone. He forgot to eat until late afternoon. He moved between the kitchen table and the couch and the bedroom as if the script were tethered to him physically. The words came faster than he could comfortably process them. Entire sequences unfolded, fully formed in his mind. He no longer felt like he was inventing scenes. He felt like he was transcribing something that was already complete. He told himself this was simply what it felt like to be inspired again. He told himself he had always been capable of this depth, that the 1980s and 1990s had merely rewarded spectacle over subtlety. On the third morning, he read through the full draft. 112 pages. Tight. Relentless. Deeply unsettling. There were images in it that made even him shift in his seat. A child describing a dream that felt too coherent. A man recording apologies into a camera before committing something unspeakable. A final act that inverted the original story in a way that felt both inevitable and cruel. Donnie felt alive in a way that was almost embarrassing. He showered, shaved more carefully than usual, and emailed the script to Buddy with a short note that read simply, "For your eyes only." Buddy called 2 hours later. Donnie answered the second ring, expecting laughter, profanity, admiration, congratulations. Instead,
Well?
I read it.
And?
Donnie, what the hell did you send me?
Very funny.
I'm not joking.
It's that bad?
Bad? You open with a home invasion that isn't shown. It's described from the perspective of a baby monitor. The whole thing is audio. We never see what's happening. We just hear it. And the dialogue, Jesus Christ, Donnie. The father is narrating what he's doing in real time.
That's not my script.
And the attic sequence? The woman who thinks there's a leak but it's not water? Donnie, it's described in detail. Too much detail. It's vile. I keep going, but I want to keep my breakfast down in my stomach.
That's not in my script.
I'm staring at your script, Donnie. Page 42. You okay? You been boozing again?
Donnie stood abruptly and crossed to his laptop. He opened the document he had sent Buddy. His two eyes scanned the first act. It was as he remembered. Controlled, quiet. He continued to scroll. Page 42. The baby monitor scene was there. Word for word as Buddy had described it. The attic sequence appeared exactly as Buddy had recounted as well. Language far more graphic than anything Donnie had consciously recalled writing. The prose was precise, confident, and disturbingly elegant. His breathing shallowed.
Donnie? Talk to me.
I must have forgotten a draft. I was moving fast.
You don't forget something like that.
Donnie stared at the screen, at sentences that felt both foreign and intimately his. He had no memory of typing them, yet the voice was unmistakably his own.
It's bold, but it's dark in a way I don't recognize. This isn't sewage dark, this is something else. I need to know. You're steady before I send this anywhere.
The call ended without resolution. Donnie avoided reopening the document. He poured himself a drink but left it untouched on the table. He kept thinking about the sentences he did not remember writing and how seamlessly they had woven themselves into the script. There was a knock at the door just past 9. Donnie froze. He was not expecting anyone. He rarely did. It was few and far between when Donnie would get a visitor these days. And then the knock came again. He approached the door slowly and peered through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, tall, composed, dressed in a dark coat that seemed almost formal for the building. His expression was calm and patient. His face was weathered, as if it had seen too much of everything. Donnie opened the door halfway.
Can I help you?
My name is Christoph. I want to make your movie. In the gutters on the main street, city trash, city steam. One hungry rat
that one cracked drum of glowing green. Drip, drip in the black pipes, siren somewhere far above. Something falls, something screams, and it crawls out of the sludge. Sewage is coming up from below. Sewage, where the filth learns to grow. You can lock every door, you can pray, you can choke. Sewage, when it rises, you're already soaked. Teenagers drinking by the culvert, laughing, daring each other in. Red eyes watching from the runoff, rotted teeth, melted skin. One by one in the floodlights, claws drag them through the grime. You won't drown in the water, you'll drown in what's left behind. Sewage, it's coming up from below. Sewage, where the filth learns to grow. You can bolt every gate, you can beg, you can plead. Sewage, when it's hungry, you're all it will need.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Breaking news from Good Ranchers. Over 85% of grass-fed beef in stores is imported. Most grocery store meat contains antibiotics, hormones, and harmful seed oils. Good Ranchers does things differently. All their meat is born and raised on local American farms. No antibiotics, no added hormones, no seed oils. Just one ingredient, meat. Visit goodranchers.com and get $25 off your first order with code RANCH25. That's code RANCH25 for $25 off your first order. Goodranchers.com. American meat delivered.
Introducing the all-new MLB Plus, your ticket to streaming baseball's best. Let's go! Enjoy MLB Network 24/7 with live out-of-market games and award-winning shows. Enhance game nights with MLB Big Inning, live and commercial-free. And hear live home and away radio broadcasts of every game, blackout-free. Even stream minor league games all season. It's all here and it's all new. Get MLB Plus for just $59.99 a year. Visit MLB.com/MLB Plus.